Hello everyone and welcome back. Today I want to share something a little different with you, and I need you to stay with me until the end because this might be one of the most important things you hear this week. My name is Susan Miller. I'm 68 years old and I live in Boulder, Colorado with my husband Tom. We've been married for 44 years. We have 3 adult children and 4 grandchildren, and for 31 years I worked as an ICU nurse. I held strangers' hands during the worst moments of their lives. I sat at bedsides at 2 in the morning. I skipped lunch because there was always one more patient who needed something. I drove home at 11 at night, ate whatever was in the fridge, and collapsed into bed, only to do it all again the next day. I knew everything about what a neglected body looks like. I watched it every single day at work. The consequences of high blood pressure left untreated. The aftermath of strokes that could have been prevented. The slow, quiet destruction that happens when a person spends decades putting everyone else first. I knew all of it. And at 64, I was diagnosed with osteoporosis, high blood pressure, and I was 35 pounds overweight, carrying a fatigue that didn't go away even after a full night of sleep. The osteoporosis diagnosis was the moment that cracked something open in me. Not because I was afraid of dying, but because I stood in front of the mirror in that doctor's office and thought, I spent 31 years helping other people recover. I never once learned how to take care of myself. So if you're watching this and you recognize that feeling, if you've spent your life being the one who holds everything together for everyone else, this video is for you. Stay with me, because what I'm about to share are 4 morning habits that quietly and significantly raise stroke risk after 60. Habits I had for decades without realizing the damage they were doing. Not dramatic habits, not obvious ones, the ones that feel completely normal, the ones that feel like just another ordinary morning. Before we get into the 4 habits, I want you to understand something that I knew professionally for decades, but never applied to my own life. The first hour after you wake up is the most physiologically vulnerable window of the entire day, especially after 60. While you sleep, your body goes 6 to 8 hours without any fluids. Your blood thickens. It becomes more viscous, moves more slowly, and forms clots more easily. At dawn, your cortisol, your primary stress hormone, peaks naturally. And for most people over 60, blood pressure rises right along with it. So you open your eyes already carrying thicker blood, tighter vessels, and a natural pressure surge running through arteries that have become less flexible with age. As an ICU nurse, I understood this in clinical terms. I could explain it to a patient's family in the middle of the night without hesitating. But every single morning of my own life, I woke up, went straight to the coffee maker, turned on the news, took my medications, and moved into the day without a second thought about what I was doing to my own body. That stops today. For me, and I hope for you too. The first habit is the one that embarrasses me the most, because as a nurse, I had absolutely no excuse. Skipping water in the morning. My morning for most of my adult life looked like this. Alarm goes off, straight to the kitchen, coffee on, news on, medication taken, out the door or onto the couch. Water never entered the picture. And I know that's exactly what most of you do too, because it's what almost everyone does. Here's the problem. After a full night of sleep, your blood viscosity has increased. It's thicker, slower, and more prone to clotting. Research published in the European Journal of Neurology found that low morning hydration was a contributing factor in nearly 48% of first-time ischemic strokes. Not genetics, not a lifetime of poor diet, just dehydration. And coffee in that state isn't neutral. Caffeine is a vasoconstrictor. It narrows blood vessels. So you're taking blood that's already thick and slow, and you're squeezing the pipes it needs to travel through. The fix is the simplest thing I've ever prescribed to myself. A full glass of room temperature water before anything else, before the coffee, before the medication, before the news, before you look at your phone. You're not just waking up your mouth, you're rehydrating your brain. I keep a glass on my nightstand now. It's the first thing I reach for before my feet hit the floor. That habit took me 2 days to build and 4 years to fully understand why it was so important. Start there. Tonight, before you go to sleep, put a glass of water on your nightstand. That's it. That's the whole first step. The second habit surprised me when I fully understood it, because we're taught to think of stillness as rest, as healing, as something earned after a long life of hard work. Staying completely motionless after waking up. In my retirement, my mornings became slow and quiet. I would wake up, stay in bed for a while scrolling through my phone, then sit at the kitchen table with my coffee without really moving, just sitting, thinking, watching the morning light come through the window. It felt peaceful. It felt like I had finally earned the right to move slowly. But that stillness had a cost I couldn't see. After 60, your blood vessels are less elastic. When you go from hours of lying flat to simply sitting still, blood begins to pool in the lower half of your body. It slows its return to the heart. Cerebral blood flow decreases. And for someone with any plaque buildup or clotting risk, that window of stagnation can become a trigger. A study published in Circulation followed more than 8,000 adults over the age of 60 and found that those who spent prolonged periods sedentary in the morning had double the stroke risk, even when they exercised later in the day. Because it's not just about how much you move, it's about when you move. The solution doesn't require a gym or a trainer or even proper shoes. While you're still lying in bed, rotate your ankles, flex your toes, move your fingers. When you sit up, roll your shoulders, slow neck circles, then stand up gradually. 2 minutes of gentle movement before you're fully upright. I do this every morning now. It feels strange at first to take that kind of time for yourself, especially when you've spent your whole life moving fast for other people. But it works, and your body will thank you for it. The third habit is the one where my clinical knowledge and my personal behavior were the most embarrassingly inconsistent: skipping breakfast or eating almost nothing. For most of my working years, breakfast was a cup of coffee and maybe a piece of toast, eaten standing up over the sink while reviewing my schedule in my head. On busy days, nothing at all. I told myself I wasn't hungry. I told myself I was watching my weight. I told myself it was fine. I treated my own body with less care than I would have allowed any of my patients to receive. After 60, the body becomes significantly more sensitive to low blood sugar, hypoglycemia, and the brain, which runs almost entirely on glucose and doesn't store much of it, is the first organ to feel the drop, the first to fog, the first to be compromised. When you're already dehydrated and then add no fuel to that equation, you create the exact conditions for dizziness, cognitive confusion, or worse, a vascular event. This risk compounds significantly if you're taking blood pressure or diabetes medication on an empty stomach. That combination was something I saw in patient histories more times than I can count. I'm not asking you to cook a full breakfast. That's not realistic and it's not necessary. Half a hard-boiled egg, a spoonful of Greek yogurt, a small handful of almonds, something small, something with protein, just enough to stabilize your blood sugar and send your brain one clear message. We are supported. We are operational. We can begin. That's not indulgence. That's self-care. And as a retired ICU nurse, I'm telling you directly, after 60, self-care is not optional. It is medical necessity. And now we get to the fourth habit, the one I believe does the most silent damage, the one that took me the longest to recognize in myself, because it looked exactly like responsibility. Flooding your brain with stress before it's ready. My mornings always started with the news, then emails, then a mental review of everything I needed to do, everything I was worried about, every conversation I needed to have, every problem I hadn't yet solved. All of it before I had even finished my first cup of coffee. As a nurse, I had trained myself to snap into high alert mode the moment I walked through the hospital doors. And somewhere along the way, that mode started activating the moment I opened my eyes at home, too. A large study published in the journal Stroke tracked over 93,000 people for more than a decade and found that individuals who experienced high psychological stress early in the day had a significantly elevated stroke risk, even after controlling for age, blood pressure, and lifestyle factors. The highest risk group was adults over 60. The most dangerous window was the first 3 hours after waking. Your brain at that hour is still in transition. Your cortisol is already peaking on its own schedule. Your blood pressure is already rising naturally. When you pile mental and emotional weight on top of that biological process, you're not being productive. You're amplifying a physiological stress response that is already operating at its natural ceiling. What I do now is something that felt almost impossible for me at first. 10 minutes of nothing. No phone, no news, no to-do list. I sit in my garden when the weather allows, or at the kitchen table facing the window when it doesn't, and I drink my water and let my brain wake up before I ask anything of it. 10 minutes, that's all. For a woman who spent 31 years in one of the most high-intensity environments a person can work in, 10 minutes of quiet in the morning felt like a foreign language. Now it feels like oxygen. I have a granddaughter named Emma. She's 6 years old. And a couple of years ago, during one of her visits, she asked me to teach her how to garden, which has been my greatest joy outside of nursing for as long as I can remember. We went out to the backyard together, and I knelt down to plant a seedling. When I tried to stand back up, I couldn't do it without pressing both hands flat against the ground and pushing myself up slowly. Emma watched me with those wide, honest eyes that only a 6-year-old has, and she asked me, completely without cruelty, just with pure, innocent curiosity, "Grandma, does it hurt to be old?" I smiled at her. I told her I was fine, and then I went to the bathroom, closed the door, and cried. Not because I was in pain, but because I realized in that moment that I had spent 31 years keeping other people alive, and I had let myself get to a place where my own 6-year-old granddaughter felt sorry for me. I decided in that bathroom that I was never going to let that happen again. Not for me, for her. So I started. At 64, I started. And I'm telling you right now, at 68, it was not too late. It is not too late for you either. Here is your simple summary. 4 morning habits that quietly raise stroke risk after 60. 1. Skipping water in the morning. Fix it with 1 full glass of room temperature water before anything else. 2. Staying completely still after waking up. Fix it with 2 minutes of gentle movement before you stand. 3. Skipping breakfast or eating almost nothing. Fix it with something small and protein-based, enough to stabilize your blood sugar. 4. Flooding your brain with stress before it's ready. Fix it with 10 minutes of quiet before the noise of the day begins. None of this requires a gym membership. None of it costs money. None of it demands perfection. It just requires you to finally put yourself on the list. I spent 31 years keeping other people alive. At 64, I finally started living. And if you're watching this, it's not too late for you to do the same. If this helped you today, share it with someone you love who is over 60. And subscribe if you want more honest, simple, real content for women who are done putting themselves last. I'm Susan Miller. I'll see you in the next one.